Two craft go up in flames in Batemans Bay Marina. BHP begins implementation of the second-tier offsets, and Illawarra Aboriginals to fight for further land claims.
Good evening. All hopes of bicentennial celebrations ended this morning for one of the tall ships. Moored at Batemans Bay for repairs, the tall ship Fowler was severely damaged by a fire, which also burnt the passenger ferry Marinda to deck level.
Fowler retired from the tall ships race from Hobart to Sydney on Monday and pulled into Batemans Bay for repairs. She was due to leave this morning to join in with the bicentennial celebrations on Sydney Harbour. The fire broke out at around 5:30 this morning, putting an end to that dream. These shots by an amateur cameraman show the ferocity of the blaze. Police and fire officers believe the blaze started on the charter vessel Marinda, spreading quickly through her timber frame and levelling her to the deck. From there, the fire spread to the tall ship, causing extensive damage to her stern, rear mast and wheelhouse, where the ship's first mate, Stephen Bridges, was sleeping. Mr Bridges, suffering from smoke inhalation, was pulled from the wheelhouse by the ship's Canberra owner, Andrew Hughes.
We tried to get our stern lines free, but there's too much smoke and heat, and we got the hose off, the fire hose off the walkway, and I went aboard Marinda to try and put her out, but she was just red hot. I couldn't even touch the rails. So we came back aboard Fowler and tried to put her out from there, but it just became so intense we couldn't keep near it. And we were driven back right the way down Fowler, and the hose was pretty ineffective, so we jumped off, and I yelled out for everyone to call the fire brigade.
The ferry was alight and the hoses just wouldn't look at it. It was just going. And petrol was, you know, the fuel was going, and then flares on board, and then flares on board the other ship, and up she went.
The blaze was brought under control by Batemans Bay and the Bush Fire Brigade. Mr Hughes estimates the damage caused by the fire to be worth more than $80,000. Meanwhile, police say the damage to the Marinda would be worth at least $120,000. The police scientific branch and inspectors from the fire brigade are investigating the scene in an attempt to establish the cause of the fire. At the moment, they believe there are no suspicious circumstances. Fiona Clark, Win News.
Two youths had the fright of their lives this afternoon at the height of a storm which lashed parts of the Illawarra. The boys were sheltering near a caravan when it was struck by lightning. Luckily, they weren't seriously injured.
The lightning bolt struck a power pole at the Surf Rider Caravan Park at Barrack Point at about 2 o'clock, burning a hole in the side of one van. Fortunately, no one was inside at the time, but two teenagers trying to shelter under the annex were thrown several metres by the force of the bolt. One youth suffered a burn to the hand and his companion was badly shaken. Both were taken to Shell Harbour Hospital but are expected to be discharged tonight. This afternoon, the van owner, Alan Puckridge, was assessing the damage. The main casualties appeared to be a set of figurines which were smashed when a shelf gave way. The bolt came during a fierce storm which brought hail to many parts of the region. Large hailstones fell around Lake Illawarra, and at Kiama they were reported to be as large as golf balls, damaging cars and trees around the town. Neril Fry, Win News.
A 4% wage increase for workers in the BHP Coated Products division is expected to be ratified on the 8th of February, following further negotiations on the second-tier offsets. The employees of the former Lysarts and CRM works missed out on the rise granted yesterday to other BHP steel workers at Port Kembla because of failure to reach agreement on the trade-offs.
Delegates from unions with members employed in the steel industry met today for report backs on the Industrial Commission's endorsement of the agreements reached after weeks of intensive negotiations. The Slab and Plate Products Division employees will receive the increase in their pay packets on February 18th. And if agreement can be reached, workers in other divisions should see the benefits shortly after. Manager Human Resources BHP Port Kembla Ross James has welcomed the finalisation of what he says has been a difficult process. Mr James says the offsets, numbering in the hundreds plant-wide and in various departments, will be progressively implemented.
There are two matters that we need to implement. Firstly, we need to make the arrangements to pay to our employees the 4% wage increase. That increase was operative as from yesterday. It amounts to approximately $14 for each employee on average, and we'll be proceeding to implement that for our employees as soon as possible. The second aspect is to implement the changes in work that are part of the agreement, and we will be proceeding to do that in the weeks ahead. We expect that process will take time to implement, but we anticipate that it will proceed smoothly.
Meanwhile, the after effects of problems with the number 5 blast furnace are still being felt by the company. A blowout on Christmas Eve was followed by 3 minor malfunctions, and BHP doesn't expect production to return to normal before the end of the month. As a result, the company has been forced to import some steel and advise customers of some possible delivery problems.
That's caused disruptions to basically majority of our customers. And really what we're having to do is to try and make sure that what we do deliver is in fact the essential components of what those individual customers require.
Are any customers going short?
I think the word would be tight. I think that one would use that there is obviously quite a few customers, particularly in the manufacturing area, are in fact in a tight situation and in fact are relying on our deliveries on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis. At this stage, I'm certainly not aware of anybody who is stopped.
Terry Moore, Win News.
The South Coast Aboriginal Lands Council will continue its push for land claims despite partial approval from the state government for 2 areas south of Wollongong. The Lands Council has developed plans for the 2 sites at Windang and Primby, but only half the land needed has been granted.
The council received verbal notification from the State Land Claims Unit on 2 applications which have been registered for more than 2 years. The claims relate to 6 hectares at the old Primby tip, included in a plan for a community sports facility, and a block alongside the former Windang airstrip, which the Aborigines intend to use as a caravan park. The recent approval comes despite an allegation that Wollongong Council has discriminated against the Lands Council.
I believe they are, because they've opposed all our claims. We've put claims in on the old soil conservation sheds. They've asked me to do more development applications for them and find the previous ones, which I don't think I have to do that, but that's what they required of me to do that.
The Lands Council will lobby for title to the entire area originally applied for, as well as ownership of the former soil conservation depot at Windang, with the hope the process won't be as lengthy as in the past. When conventional channels were continually blocked, the ALP candidate for Wollongong, Laurie Kelly, was asked to help. Mr Henry said he preferred to think the approval which followed soon after was not a political ploy or an attempt to pacify the Aborigines in the bicentennial year, but an act based on the validity of the claim.
I don't know. As I stated, they've been in there for 12 years. Whether they've just seen the light and starting to give us something or not, I don't know.
The Wollongong Chamber of Commerce is making another attempt to convince the City Council its special mall benefit levy is an unfair burden on inner-city traders. The Mall Working Party has commissioned another survey of shoppers to find out just who has benefited from the mall's development.
The special benefits levy, over and above the council rates, was imposed on mall traders last year on the premise that they would gain additional business through the development of the mall. The Chamber of Commerce has consistently opposed the levy, which is used to promote and maintain the mall.
As a chamber, we've been concerned from the beginning about a funding system for the mall through a levy which assumes that the total benefit of the mall is coming to a limited number of business houses actually facing the mall or its immediate vicinity. Really, the benefit of the mall is to the whole of the city. Much of its benefit is to the whole of the city.
The first survey was carried out this time last year to gauge who was using the mall, where they shopped and how much they spent. The Chamber convinced the Council to repeat the survey today and tomorrow to give a more complete overview of the shopping trends. It's being conducted by the Illawarra Regional Information Service, with the findings to be forwarded to the Mall Working Party. However, Walter Jervis has no doubts about the outcome.
It will show that the benefit from trading and operating the mall is much wider than the area which a levy is currently imposed upon.
The Chamber believes the special levy is prohibitive for small stores and could very well destroy the contribution of specialty shops, which are vital to the mall's success. Walter Jervis maintains if there is a benefit to mall traders, it will increase their property values and so raise the rates which Council can exact. John Mulhall, Win News.
Ahead on tonight's Win News, DMR workers impose bans on the new harbour entrance at Port Kembla.
And vandals strike again at the Dapto Baby Health Centre. The Australian Workers' Union has gone on the attack over the use of contract labour at a Port Kembla construction site. AWU organiser Neville Hilton says the incident may have been a deliberate attempt to disrupt the operation.
This is what Department of Main Roads unions are fuming about. 400 metres of unfinished roadway built in 6 days over Christmas. Only it wasn't done by the same men working here. Contract labour was allegedly brought in to continue work while union members were off over the Christmas period.
There was some material to be moved here on the site, and the DMR engineers in their wisdom went and brought some contractors in to do the work rather than use their own DMR forces.
Unions have now black-banned any work on that section of roadway until they receive a full explanation from the DMR as to why contract labour and machinery was used when union men could have done the job. What the AWU is so frustrated about is that work was going ahead on schedule and within costs. DMR officials have told the unions the decision was a mistake. However, men on the job fear it was a deliberate attempt to disrupt the job, the first to be carried out entirely by DMR labour.
The men made the comment at a meeting at lunchtime yesterday that the only reason this could have happened is somebody's trying to sabotage the job or there's some sort of corruption involved. It was a lunatic decision, a job that's going so well and ahead of program, to have this impediment put in the way of it. It was crazy.
The road is being built by the Maritime Services Board to give trucks easier access to Port Kembla's inner harbour. Officials from 4 unions will meet tomorrow morning to decide what action can be taken. It's expected that will lead to an investigation into the incident, and the unions are also expected to inform Roads Minister Terry Sheehan. The DMR did not wish to comment on the matter this afternoon, pending tomorrow's union meeting. Andrew Sams, Win News.
Lightning seems to have struck twice for the Dapto Baby Health Service. Just a month after the health centre in Biami Street was destroyed by fire, the service has again been the victim of vandals.
The Baby Health Service has been operating temporarily out of the Coonawarra Community Centre after arsonists damaged the Dapto premises just before Christmas. But this morning, centre staff had their second unpleasant surprise this week. Vandals had broken in, ransacking the office, stealing a gold telephone and turning the Baby Health Service's equipment upside down. It's been a bitter blow for the service, which was only just finding its feet again.
It's hard working under these conditions, you know. I had absolutely nothing left from Dapto, and I had to get everything ready to come here to this centre, which they let us have out of the goodness of their heart, and now it's been broken in two, so things are everywhere. I don't know how much has been destroyed now.
The centre was also broken into on Monday night, although less damage was caused in that incident. Fortunately, the files which survived the Baby Health Centre fire hadn't been moved to Coonawarra because there was nowhere to lock them up. But last night's break-in still caused disruption for parents trying to have their babies checked over. Staff say they don't know how they'll prevent further attacks. They're just hoping the vandals see some sense.
What I'm going to have to do is put bars on windows and super locks everywhere, and, you know, I mean, we don't keep any drugs, we don't keep any money on the premises. I just can't understand why people want to come and do this sort of thing.
Wingecarribee Shire President Peter Reynolds has called on the state and federal governments to rethink their funding arrangements for welfare grants. Councillor Reynolds says local governments are being asked to shoulder an unfair burden in welfare work.
There are a number of grants available to city and shire councils for the employment of social and economic development staff. However, at Wingecarribee Shire, those offers of assistance are turned down. Instead, the council helps community groups to take advantage of those grants to acquire their own people and resources.
Our concern being that these grants are offered and then taken away, and then the council is left with the staff, and of course it is the ratepayer that's paying that now. In the constraints of our revenue raising, we find that extremely difficult because the government wants us to do certain things in that field, but is not giving us the money to do it.
Councillor Reynolds says Wingecarribee is probably alone in this regard among Illawarra councils. Others have chosen to adopt welfare responsibilities, but he believes most have been left with the burden of payments. Councillor Reynolds believes if the state and federal governments wish councils to adopt these roles, they must be given a greater financial incentive.
The traditional role of local government was not in that field. The government, if it believes we should be doing those things, should be providing the money directly to us or giving us the powers to raise the money ourselves, which of course would mean reducing state taxes to offset the money that would be raised by local government.
The Wollongong City Council has allocated $60,000 towards the resurfacing of the bumpy section of the cycleway between Ferry Meadow Creek and North Wollongong. Work is due to start within the month and will bring this section up to the high standard of the rest of the track. The council is quick to point out that the track will not be a raceway, but one of the best recreational cycleways in the state. Wollongong Council is preparing the city for the future by undertaking a review of its planning policy, and the public is being given the chance to voice an opinion on the shape of things to come. It may be the bicentennial year, but 1988 is also the year Wollongong Council reviews its local environmental policies and plans. The lengthy process has been advertised to the public in an effort to seek new direction for the existing strategy, which has been in place for the last 5 years. According to the Chief City Planner, David Winterbottom, it's important to maintain a workable balance between the urban and natural environment and the needs of a rapidly growing community.
We need people to say, look, we need more housing, can't get housing for our kids, try and help that. On the other hand, they may say, no, it's much more important that we preserve more of what we've got, that we upgrade the quality of our living environment, and that standards ought to be increased, even if that makes it a little bit more difficult for people to put in housing.
Council is seeking a broad spectrum of public comment, not simply from developers or environmentalists. Officers are waiting for the opinions of community groups and individuals before considering possible changes.
When we've got those in, then Council will formulate the suggested changes to the existing plan, and I don't anticipate these being very major. I think we're just adjusting course. We're not starting again on this process.
Council's existing planning strategies are on display in the administration building, and those with comments have been invited to write to the town clerk.
Next, sport with Ross Warren, junior sports stars honoured.
And government funding for improvements to Beaton Park Basketball Stadium.
Good evening. Beaton Park Stadium, home of the big Rooster Illawarra Hawks and better known as the Snake Pit, is taking on a new face, with the start of the National Basketball League season only a month away. The floor of the main court has been repainted with the new sponsor's logo, and thanks to a state government grant, playing facilities on the outside courts are about to be upgraded.
Speaker of the House and ALP candidate for Wollongong, Laurie Kelly, today handed over a $40,000 cheque to Illawarra Basketball Association President Peter Brettel. Mr Kelly said the state government had to consider 986 applications for sporting capital assistance grants last year, applications totalling $26 million. He said only a third of that money was available, and the government was interested in helping sporting groups which showed a willingness to help themselves. Mr Brettel said the association had been lobbying for state government assistance for more than a year.
The state government's agreed to give us a grant of $40,000, Sean, which will go towards putting a complete new floor down in the stadium, in the old stadium as we call it. The floor there has been there for many years. We've had a lot of problems, as you'd be aware of, over the last few years. And what we've been hoping to do, we've been talking to the government now for 12, 18 months to get a grant to be able to put a complete new floor down, which will be a tremendous boost for people playing, the juniors and everyone else around the place. We had to make a decision from the association as far as the Hawks are concerned, and I'd like to add that we have a tremendously close relationship with the Hawks, and we had to make the decision to allow them to put permanent seating on the court in view of the crowds that want to come. So we were concerned that the problems we've had with the old stadium, that if we didn't do something with the floor in the short term, we may run into a lot of problems. But this now will allow us to do that, and we can only say that how grateful we are for the government, who have been very supportive to us on a number of occasions in the past.
Meanwhile, Big Rooster Wollongong manager Tony Cincotta was also at the stadium to survey the new surface of the main court, complete with newly painted logos of the Hawks' new sponsor. Mr Cincotta passed on a cheque to the Hawks for the sum of the first year's sponsorship, said to be a substantial 5-figure total. Expressing his delight at the stadium's new floor, Mr Cincotta said 1988 could be the start of a long association with the Hawks.
Being their major sponsor, we're tied up with them for this season. We have an option for another 2 years, depending on whether it's amicable to both parties, which we hope that it will be. But we hope to get behind them, being a local company in the area and being a local team. We hope to get behind them as much as we can.
Mr Cincotta said one of the immediate projects being planned was the construction of new sponsors boxes on the eastern side of the stadium.
Outstanding young bull-eye boxer Shannon Taylor today won the McDonald's Wollongong Advertiser Junior Sports Star of the Year Award for 1987. Some of the Illawarra's best young athletes received awards at a special presentation held on the Marinda Floating Restaurant.
In 1987, 15-year-old Taylor consolidated his ranking as one of the nation's best young boxers by winning the Australian Junior Lightweight belt at the National Amateur Titles in Sydney in November. Taylor dominated his division over the past 12 months, despite giving away age and experience to the majority of fighters he met. He won the award for the Outstanding Sporting Achievement in the 13 to 16 years age group after winning 6 other titles in 1987, including the State Junior Lightweight crown. The prize in the 8 to 11 years section was shared by gymnast Christy Wilson and motocross rider Wayne McInerney. 8-year-old Christy from Albion Park Rail is the youngest person to earn a gymnastics scholarship to Canberra's Institute of Sport, while 11-year-old Wayne of Farnborough Heights won his second consecutive National A-grade 60cc title, losing only 80 points of a possible 1,000 in his final score. Wayne, who rides in the 50, 60 and 80cc classes, also notched 3 state titles during last year. Kirraville's 6-year-old Stephanie Hamilton won the award in the 5 to 7 years category after becoming the youngest gymnast to compete at a state championships last April. Stephanie took out the level 1 section in the state championships and recorded the highest overall score of any level. Today's function was attended by Wollongong Advertiser editor Dennis Penzo, Advertiser Sports Chief Dean Simpson and Illawarra Mercury General Manager Peter Newell, while awards were presented by Steelers stars Dean Carney and Paul Upfield, Hawks Alphonse Hammond and Warwick Giddy, and from the Wollongong Wolves, Scott Dixon and new signing Scottish international Alan Brazil.
Today's violent storms cut short the final day of the Riot Wetsuit Australian Fun Board Championships on Lake Illawarra, but there'll be no stopping the celebration for Wollongong's 2 new national champs. Gary Kemper and Kevin Badgery took out their respective classes, while Joyce Cowell finished second in the women's section, but easily won the women's slalom event.
Only one heat was run this morning before the early afternoon storms sent competitors and officials running for cover. With conditions treacherous out on the lake, officials had no option but to bring the successful carnival to a premature close, as even hail lashed the lake foreshores and the yacht club. But with the week's racing over, the Illawarra Yacht Club can honour its 2 new champions and one rider who will surely challenge for national honours in years to come. Kemper won his heat today to take out the construction class, while Badgery continued his march through the masters class. And Joyce Cowell, in her first full year of racing, was pipped by Sydney's Serpa Havey in the women's. Victorian Arthur Brett claimed the production heavyweight class from Queenslander John Buick. Maris Naish of South Australia took the production lightweight class, while Mark Carver easily won the juniors. Sydney's Tom Ledecky won the men's slalom, and a team will be chosen tonight to contest the World Cup in Japan later this year.
A smart field has been drawn to contest the Vet Search International Trophy Final over 507 metres, the feature race on tonight's 10-event program at Dapto Greyhounds. The final is race 5 on the card, and the best chances include Hardell Grove, Lonesome Ash, Mama Bear and Miss Crisp. But our trackman has selected number 1 Worldly Willow to win the trophy, while his other best bet tonight is in race 10, number 7 Stockbroker. I'll tell you what, Ross, I hope he has better luck than a couple of stockbrokers I know.
Yes, it would have been a good time during the crash. Thanks, Ross. Patrons at the Dapto show on Saturday night will be treated to a taste of the exotic Middle East. A special feature of the show this year is an Arabian horse spectacular.
Dapto Showground may not be the most idyllic sight for these elaborate Arabic costumes, but the decorated horses and the riders are a sight in themselves. These are just a few of the horses and costumes which will appear in the Arabian Horse Spectacular on Saturday night, starting at 8 o'clock. Others will come from around New South Wales and interstate. Arabian horses are famed for their speed and beauty, but it seems their costumes will be just as important this weekend. After Saturday night's event, the horses and their riders will turn out on Sunday morning for an Arabian feature show, where they'll compete for a Best Costume prize. The hand-sewn costumes are made from a variety of materials including wool, skins, satin and silver and gold ornaments. Valued at between $500 and $5,000, the costumes can take anything up to 400 hours to make. Together with their impressive steeds, it's a spectacular sight. In fact, worth taking a bow for. John Mulhall, Win News.
With a look at the weather scene now, here's Ross Warren.
Thanks, Mary. Wasn't it a violent little storm this afternoon? Hail the size of golf balls at Kiama. The forecast for the Illawarra and South Coast tomorrow, a mild to warm, humid and partly cloudy Friday, There's the hail now. Winds should swing back to northeasterly tomorrow afternoon. Maximum temperatures will range between 25 and 26 degrees. For the southern tablelands, some morning cloud clearing to a fine, warm and humid day, with the winds becoming northwesterly. Maximum temperatures will range between 27 and 31 degrees. The wind might have died down for the moment, but keep the hatches battened. A strong wind warning for winds at up to 30 knots is current along the coast north of Maruya Heads. Looking ahead, a hot one on Saturday, but a bit unsettled on Sunday. All in all for tomorrow, becoming fine. Hope no one was playing golf on the Kiama course today, Mary. They would have had trouble finding the ball.
I agree. Definitely not half of the course, those weather conditions.
And it's not safe with lightning around either.
That's right.
We'll see you tomorrow night.
Good night.